In Greek mythology, Prometheus was the bringer of fire to humanity. In doing so, Zeus had him nailed to a mountain and sent an eagle to eat his liver every morning, which would regrow every night. Prometheus is very similar to modern-day whistleblowers, punished for exposing information for the betterment of the world to the public. Classified information is material that the government body deems to be sensitive information to the public, which in turn is highly protected. Imagine a law surrounding the classified information, impossible to pass, only allowing very specific people to gain access to this information, barring the public from seeing it. June 5th, 2013. 11:40 p.m. Documents from the National Security Agency, the NSA, shows they forced telecom giant Verizon to grant the US government all of its metadata are leaked to the news agency The Guardian. The wall has started to collapse. Slides explaining how the PRISM data collecting program worked are leaked. These slides show PRISM has been tracking the US public since September 11, 2007. Balance Informant, a tool used by the NSA to record and analyze data, is leaked. Whistleblower goes public. He is currently in Hong Kong. The United States government will press charges of espionage against him.
My name's Ed Snowden. I'm 29 years old. I work for Booz Allen Hamilton as an infrastructure analyst for NSA in Hawaii.
Born in Chicago on April 7, 1931, John Ellsberg would become the model of what would occur when someone leaked classified information. On Sunday, June 13, 1971, with the help of the New York Times, John Ellsberg leaked the first of 9 excerpts that would later be known as the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers revealed that not only did the Johnson administration systemically lie behind the true reason the U.S. entered Vietnam to the public, but also to Congress. The Pentagon Papers included 3,000 pages of narrative, along with 4,000 pages of supporting documents, showing one of the main points of the Vietnam War was to stop the spread of communism in Southeast Asia and to help contain communist China. To discredit Ellsberg, the Nixon administration illegally sought information on Ellsberg's mental state, which included breaking into Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office and looking for potential embarrassing material. Here, you can see the Espionage Act of 1917, which Ellsberg will later be charged with, along with other charges of theft and conspiracy, which carried a maximum sentence of 115 years. But the charges against Ellsberg were later dismissed due to the Nixon administration breaking in and illegally gathering evidence.
Absolutely, but I just say that we've got to keep our eye on the main ball. The main ball is Ellsberg. We got to get this son of a bitch.
According to Snowden, the NSA has been hacking into Hong Kong and Chinese computers since 2009. The United Kingdom's Home Office instructs airlines to not allow Snowden to board any flights to the United Kingdom. The Guardian reports the United Kingdom's Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ, had access to many foreign politicians' communications during the 2009 G20 summit. The Guardian publishes leaked documents showing the NSA could and did inadvertently collect and store data of domestic U.S. communications without the usage of a warrant. The U.S. Department of State revokes Edward Snowden's passport. Edward Snowden leaves Hong Kong on a flight to Moscow. Because Snowden's passport got revoked 2 days earlier, he would be forced to stay in the airport terminal and not allowed to leave.
We have gone through regular law enforcement channels in enforcing the extradition requests that we've made with respect to Mr. Snowden.
Under the Obama administration, the NSA collected and recorded U.S. email records for over 2 years. We would have not known any of this without Edward Snowden leaking it. But due to the Espionage Act of 1917, if Edward Snowden ever leaves Russia, he would be extradited back to the U.S. and put on an unfair trial. In the next chapter, there's a lot of grotesque information, so I highly recommend not watching it if you're not prepared. In early 2010, Chelsea Manning started leaking classified information to the WikiLeaks organization. Arguably, the most notable documents leaked were the Afghan War Diaries and Iraq War Logs. The Afghan War Diaries and Iraq War Logs showed U.S. military and government were grossly incompetent, were complicit in multiple war crimes, and had grotesque behavior from the people in charge. From the killings of journalist Saeed Chamar and Amir Noor Eldin, civilian casualties, detainment and torture facilities, and child prostitution. In the Baghdad Airstrike, both journalists Saeed Chamar and Amir Noor Eldin and 8 other Iraqi civilians were brutally murdered by an American airstrike.
One shoot. Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260s.
Come on, fire! Hey, Roger. Keep shoot. Keep shoot.
Bushmaster 2-6, Bushmaster 2-6. We need to move time now.
Alright, we just engaged all 8 individuals. Yeah, we got 2 emergency. We're still firing. Roger. Got him.
6 is a 2-6. We'll move, but we got this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was
bypass.
God damn it, Kyle. Alright.
Besides that, there have been multiple cases of civilian casualties caused by the U.S. military and their ability to be grossly incompetent. On March 21, 2007, CIA paramilitaries opened fire on a man fleeing away from them. The civilian in question, Shumkan, was a deaf and mute man and could not hear the paramilitary's warning. The same year, after quote-unquote ensuring there were no innocent Afghans in the surrounding area, end quote, U.S. Special Forces dropped 6 2,000-pound bombs onto a compound believed to house a highly valued individual. Locals of the region reported 300 civilians were killed due to that bombing. In 2005, the New York Times was able to obtain a 2,000-page U.S. military investigation into the homicide of 2 unarmed Afghan civilians by U.S. military personnel. The investigation showed in 2002, 2 prisoners, Habibullah and Delaware, were repeatedly chained to the ceiling and beaten, resulting in their deaths. Though much is not known about Habibullah, there is some information provided about how Delaware was arrested. 4 days before the eve of the Muslim holiday, Eid al-Fitr, Delaware left his small town of Whistleblower to gather his sisters from a nearby town to celebrate the holiday together. But due to the lack of gas money, he drove to the capital coast in hopes of being able to taxi for money. There, he was able to pick up 3 passengers. Delaware started driving them to their intended destinations, but on the route, they passed Camp Salarino, a base used by American forces. The 4 men were detained and turned over to American soldiers. Though Delaware was sent to Bagram Collection Point, a nearby military prison, the 3 passengers were sent to Guantanamo. In March 2004, 15 months after their capture, the 3 passengers were released from Guantanamo, with letters saying that they posed no threat to American forces, though Delaware was eventually beaten to death. Autopsies of both Halibullah and Delaware showed trauma to both prisoners' legs, describing the trauma as comparable to being ran over by a bus. Here, you can see the punishment of every person who was proven guilty of the homicide of Halibullah and Delaware. The longest prison sentence somebody received was 5 months. During the Afghan War, the U.S. government provided contracts to DynCorp to help stabilize and administer military equipment to the U.S. and Afghanistan armies. Some of these DynCorp contractors decided it was a logical idea to hire some child prostitutes while they were in Afghanistan. In a May 2009 meeting, Interior Minister Hanif Adamar expresses deep concerns that lives could be in danger if news leaked that foreign policy trainers working for the U.S. commercial contractor DynCorp hired quote-unquote dancing boys, end quote, to perform for them. Bacha boys are 8 to 15-year-olds. They put on makeup, tie belts to their feet, and slip into scanty women's clothing. And then, to the whine of a harmonium and wailing vocals, they dance seductively to smoky roomfuls of leering older men. After the show is over, the services are auctioned off to the highest bidder, who will sometimes purchase a boy outright. And by services, we mean anal sex. For leaking these multiple war crimes the U.S. committed, Chelsea Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison. But eventually the sentence was commuted to only a little longer than 7 years by then-President Barack Obama. The Afghan incident wasn't even the first time DynCorp has been caught trafficking and hiring child prostitutes. During the Bosnian War, which occurred approximately 30 years ago, DynCorp contractors were caught trafficking and selling girls as slaves. Not one of these contractors have yet to be prosecuted. This paragraph is from a Huffington Post article talking about the Bosnian War and its sex trafficking. More and more often in those months, the talk among his co-workers had turned to boast about owning prostitutes. How young they were, how good they were in bed, how much they cost. And it wasn't just boasting. Johnston often saw his co-workers out on the streets of Dubrav, the closest town to the base, with the young female consorts that inspired braggadocio. The next 3 paragraphs are from a 76-page document by the Human Rights Watch, talking about the very same situation. The subsequent investigation yielded evidence suggesting that the women in the clubs were trafficking victims, and indicated contractor involvement in illegal activities. The report confirmed that Kevin Warner, a DynCorp employee, provided investigators with a pornographic videotape that appeared to document rape, a Criminal Investigation Department report stated. The second encounter displayed the same male engaging in sexual intercourse with a different white female. During the encounter, the male leaves the view of the camera and returns with what seemed to be a bottle of oil. At the time, the male returns to the bed, where the female was located. The female sees the bottle and tells the male no, numerous times. The male gives her a reply and begins to have intercourse with the female again. At that time, I heard you could purchase women, that they knew a way. They falsified their passports, or that they would get them falsified, or that you could get basically any age girl you wanted, the name of the clubs to get them at, just that type of thing. A lot of people said you could buy a woman and how good it is to have a sex slave at home. In the same 76-page document by the Human Rights Watch, the United States appeared 41 times in the document, and DynCorp appeared 81 times. Ironically, we would have not known any of this without two whistleblowers from DynCorp, Ben Johnston and Catherine Bolkovac. Stateless, Snowden applied for political asylum in 21 countries and got rejected from every nation except one. Russia would provide Snowden asylum if he stopped, quote-unquote, his work aimed at bringing harm, end quote. After hearing this, Snowden withdrew his request for asylum from Russia. Eventually, Russia would still provide Snowden with political asylum. Because of this, people feared Snowden would work with Russia, calling him a Russian spy. But Snowden has explicitly said he would never cooperate with Russian authorities, contradicting people calling him a traitor. On September 26, 2022, Edward Snowden was granted Russian citizenship by Vladimir Putin. Edward Snowden, Daniel Ellsberg, and Chelsea Manning have risked their lives and freedom to present relevant information to the public. From showing how the NSA and the US government were spying on its citizens to committing horrendous war crimes in countries they were supposed to restabilize. Use the information and evidence they show you. Protest the unjust things they reveal, and use your voice to hold our government accountable. In the meantime, we can protest the unjust usage of the Espionage Act and help the groundwork for better and reformed whistleblower protection laws.